So now we were going to do the conclusions of the workshops. I want to thank all the people who has prepared or worked with Moscow, Ismael, Sharon, Idra, and the idea is now every group has his own relator or two. I know there is two in one group. So now the idea is to come here, the relator of each group, to explain a little bit how was the workshop, what you did, and what are the main conclusions or reflections.
We actually talked about two main things. Correct me if I'm wrong, or do not correct me if you volunteer to come here instead of me. But first of all, we talked about the opportunities that technology has to bring more people inside decision making. Decision making in a very, very, very broad sense. We began talking about research and how to redesign research and how to redesign the way we get data and we get information. Well, the School of Public Administration, which is a partner of the University of Barcelona, in this project in accomplish, talking about how to open and redesign the institutions of research and knowledge creation. I spoke more about decision-making processes and institutions, but the idea was the same. It's how technology can now at least make clear things that people that had problems or had barriers to participate, whatever the kind, physical barriers or time barriers, or they were not in the topic, there was not a critical mass, or they were not able to enter one institution because, for instance, if you're not a researcher and a scholar, you have it more difficult to participate in research. So how can technology help bring more people inside the project? And again, the project of decision making means from research to the accountability and making the assessment, impact assessment of given policy. The second thing was to create more critical mass, even if it's distributed. And the third thing is how to make better diagnosis, make more negotiation, make more deliberation, so that decision making is not only the final step and the part where you participate, but it's a whole process that you can redesign and that you can enrich or enhance with more people contributing to, again, whatever it is of the decision making. So first thing was to put more people together and with a lesser cost, especially a lesser personal cost. The second part of the issue was how to redesign and rethink protocols, institutions, and the way we organize. So the first thing is, what are the new actors, what are the new ways to contribute. The other thing is, what are the new spaces, and by spaces, I'm not meaning physical spaces, but especially conceptual spaces, these institutions that if you're not on labor union, you cannot defend the rights of workers. If you're not on an NGO, you cannot defend the rights of whales. And if you're not on a city council, you cannot make any kind of proposal or decisions on what's going on in the street. So if we have new actors and new ways that they can relate with each other, it's very likely that we can rethink these spaces. And by these spaces, I mean rethinking how institutions work, how institutions are made up, how institutions are built, how institutions have their own protocols, but especially what happens outside of institutions. We think, or we talked about how now we can see the deinstitutionalization of many things. There was this de-schooling of society that was talked about 100 years ago, and now it seems that it's more possible than ever. We can have research on the boundaries of society, or the boundaries, or even on the outskirts of academic or research institutions, and we have decision making taking place actually outside of the outskirts, or really way beyond the reach of the formal institutions. So how these institutions can now dialogue with these new spaces, with these new informal spaces, unorganized spaces, uncharted spaces. It's really the challenge. When we talk about who has the legitimacy, who has the representativeness, etc. But I think it's that the reality is that we have these new actors, we have these new spaces, and we should, how to say that smoothly, if we don't make the first step to approach these new actors or these new spaces, they will just get rid of us, they will circumvent the institutions that do research or that do policy making, and they will do it in their own, as we've seen this happen in the last at least 15 years. This is, I think, more or less what we talked about. If there are any things that my colleagues want to point out, please have your say.
We have basically 3 questions for discussion, but I think we basically focused on the manipulation of narrative of speech around migrants and people surrounding them and organizations, so that's what I'm going to cover now. So one of the questions was, how do we as civil society get the information about what's happening in this migrant crisis? Most of it comes from official channels, the government actually, and this is biased, obviously. So what I gather from different interventions is that this should be at least complemented by other means such as, for example, social networks, although those may be biased as well, since they tend most usually to keep us within our micro ecosystem. So they, through algorithms, so on and so forth, they keep telling us what we want to hear, although there are ways to go around it. Other ways may be traveling, see what is happening for yourself, or get information from news from other countries. Now we were talking about getting information from German newspapers when you're in Hungary, or when you're in Spain, get information from The Guardian, which is a UK-based newspaper as well, so on and so forth. So basically, one way of overcoming or going around this manipulation of media would be going out of your microsystem, whatever it would be. And this, of course, relates to having an educated society, a society that is capable of critical thinking, so somebody who questions whatever information they are being given. And this also connects to the idea that people who's afraid of migrants should not be made guilty of this fear, but who we should regard as the enemy, or whoever we should be regarded as guilty, is the people creating these narratives that create fear within society or groups or social groups, which this is most usually either political groups or economic groups or lobbies of some form. And we should keep in mind that these narratives of fear are usually backed by economic interests or the interest of some elites. So we should also have some critical thinking of that and try to counterbalance this situation, not by attacking people who's fearful of migrants, but whoever is making them fearful. Then we moved on to talk about processes to address this manipulation. So I think we basically focused on 2 ideas. They should be bottom-up, so new policies, practices, whatever should come from the widest possible social base, and then this should reflect on political actions and bigger and bigger levels. And they also obviously should be informed by different perspectives. And then those policies and action should be at least at 3 levels: local, regional, or countrywide, and global. And those levels should interact with one another. And at last, we talked about science, so the academia. Well, in the same vein as the project we're talking about today, sciences should not lose the human perspective. So in the case of migrants, we should avoid dehumanizing them. This is mainly when we use quantitative statistics data, we reduce people to numbers, so it makes it easier for xenophobic discourses, this fear speech, to lead into some social groups. And it's also easier for sensationalism and this kind of speech to be the most common and to influence what we do in our everyday lives and policies and so on. So from an academic point of view, we have this responsibility of contribute to create a critical society, capable of this detachment of the data they are given and try to look for more information. So try to get a broader picture of reality, which actually questions what we are doing as academics. So we are only staying in our office to write papers, or we try to do more applied projects that actually make a difference. And one last question we raised is if we are losing ground for new generations as social sciences. That may, again, be related to how are we impacting society.
The first barrier was that researchers are really very naive. Often they have no knowledge at all about politics, so that's a barrier if you want to engage with these kind of stakeholders. Of course, there are always time constraints, so that's also basically when you want to prepare a discussion with a stakeholder, you need time to prepare, but also when you want to engage stakeholders for a longer period of time, and it takes a few years to build up relationships, so it's not always something that you have. There is also not always a degree of freedom to decide upon a specific topic. There are often hierarchies that are imminent, policymakers who have more power, for example, and it's difficult to make sure that everyone feels valued. This is not always the case. There are always personal agendas. Academics have to publish, policymakers have to get elected, so personal agendas always play a role in these relationships. There was also a discussion about objectivity. Researchers often want to be objective. They have their research, they have the results, but they do not want to make decisions for politicians. And the idea of being an objective researcher is of course also to some extent an illusion. But still, this is something which comes in between having an honest discussion with stakeholders, because researchers are often afraid. They are also often trained to develop research questions, to focus on, to not supply answers basically. They are more about defining problems, having a more systematic approach. Also, it has been mentioned that researchers are often not involved in defining solutions, so how can they give a solution? For example, if they are not some kind of deus ex machina that come and help policymakers to solve all these things. So it's difficult if they were not involved on a longer term. But then the solutions, of course, it's important to set the parameters before you have conversations with stakeholders. Think about what you want, think about the common ground, a couple of questions that you want to communicate about. There was also an issue raised with having one-on-one discussions. Maybe that's not the best way to take things forward. You have to bring groups of people together, basically, that come from different backgrounds. Just have a look. So, okay, of course, the importance of long-term relationships. This is something that need to be established and managed, and therefore facilitators are important. Facilitators, brokers, gatekeepers, those are persons who are perceived as an objective party, who take the broader context into consideration. Another potential solution is take the role of the other, empathy, sit with consultants, sit with policymakers and try to understand what their life world is all about. Then of course there is the issue of incentives, change funding schemes, make sure that researchers are trained to think about solutions and that they also think about impact early on. An interesting solution mentioned was also different researchers can have different roles. Maybe we should think about that. And 4 different roles were mentioned. The first was the researcher as an expert. The researcher as a manager is a second role, the researcher as a facilitator, and then we have the role of ambassador, those who come out or do some kind of advocacy work. So maybe we can have different kinds of researchers with different skills. Research should also focus on communicating a state of the art and not on this very square millimeter of research that you are doing as a PhD student. So let's also educate about a broader state of the art. And then finally, a last point is there is a difference between research, expertise, and experience. This is not the same. Patients have experience about the way they suffer, and this is an important source of knowledge. Expertise in methods and doing things, and then of course you have researchers. You have to bring these three sources of knowledge together to solve important problems. So that's it for me.
In our group, role play between a minister and a Swedish sociology professor. And one was a real academic professor and the minister, so they, well, you can guess maybe who was the professor and who was the minister, but that didn't work out, that conversation, and then we discussed in two groups about what was going wrong and how to solve that. Well, Alexis presented one group, I do the other one. Of course, partly the same solutions and same problems we saw. The problem first in our group was often the feeling of, fear or lack of respect, not seen by the others. The second one is there is quite often different time frame that was already mentioned. Ministers or society wants a very quick solution, maybe by consultant but not by a scientist, and that causes different processes of course as well. Different perceptions, different roles of everybody, of all people involved, and not speaking each other's language or understanding different cultures, even within one country of course, but also between countries. And that's were the main things what we saw as a problem, but we saw as a solution, partly presented already. Knowing each other, so starting with a network, when you go to a minister, start first a bit more on a lower level, discuss with other people, advisors of the minister what to do. Try to understand each other, mutual language, but also the empathy. So really not just listen, but also try to understand what the other person means. There's a lot of training can be done, of course, in this kind of things. And the last one, you can think of all kinds of new solutions, new ways how to interact. But also you have your own traditions within a country or within a situation, and you should not forget about that.
We work on the case of how to change habits of people, and how to increase the consumption of tap water instead of bottled water. Because we shared some figures at the beginning of the session, and at the European Union, the average of consumption of bottled water is 106 liters per person a year. That means more or less between 70 or 100 bottles of water, plastic bottles that the average of between 100 years and 1,000 years to disintegrate. It takes between this period of time to, depending on the type of the plastic. So we are contaminating our planet day by day, and with something that is very familiar for us. So we focused on which are the barriers, the difficulties, and which could be the drivers for increasing the consumption of tap water. Considering also that we all more or less have the information, we know that we are contaminating our planet, that plastic is not good for the environment, but anyway, we keep consuming bottled water. And then we also look at some possible actions that could be implemented to increase the consumption of tap water. I think that, yeah, we worked in different groups, and then at the end, because we didn't have much time, we just did a plenary session.
I can start. This is a very impressionist comment because I didn't prepare anything. So, one of the problems, difficulties have to do with accessibility. It was interesting because among making easier the access to tap water, one of the colleagues, I think she was from Estonia, came with an example of what happened in a city. I don't remember the city. I think she's Tartu, where the decision to offer tap water at restaurants came not from a political decision or something like that, but from cases of people just collapsing because of the heat, and that brought restaurants to decide to offer tap water. Maybe this is not the kind of solutions we're waiting for, but this is an example of the things we were talking about for accessibility. And in the end, most of the solutions we thought could help had to do with education. If I read something out, this have to do with training teachers, education, public campaigns, training professionals, training families. In the end, most of the ideas have to do with preparing people or educating people to be more conscious. I don't know if those are the words, but at least to recognize the problem as more urgent than it actually maybe some people think it is. Well, of course, we talk about both companies as a lobby. I don't know if I would use that word, but no, well, no, it's fine. If you don't see it, it can look at me and it's fine, but both companies as maybe a problem, or with the pressure, the marketing campaigns, somehow, at least it's my case. For example, when I think about bottled water, I always think about the commercials they offer. I think about the spring water, and when I think about tap water, somehow I'm from here, from Barcelona. I think about the river where the water I drink, if it's tap water, comes from, and I know that river, and I know usually the pollution of that river. So it's not the same what I think originally about both about bottled water and tap water, but it also has to do with the publicity and the marketing that those companies do. So in the end, we thought about solutions to work on that regard, but some of them have to do with taxes, more campaign, political decisions, again education, things like that. And finally, I don't want to extend to talk too much, but there is a comment from the other group who work in two groups, and they mentioned something that is quite interesting to me, because they mentioned something about the social perception of drinking water, the possible social perception about drinking water or tap water. It's not the same, maybe at some context, to bring your own bottle from home, your metal water, your crystal water, or to drink the water from a bottle. Bottled water that is what actually everyone is drinking around you. So if you do something different, well, the social perception is different. I would say it's better or worse, but it has to do with a barrier or a difficulty to change our habits. So in the end, again, working with this difficulty, have to do solutions with education of young people, carry bottles, well, creation of new ways of doing. And I don't know if anyone here wants to add something who was there, but this is something a little bit of what we did.
So the workshop was about a specific case about the regional diversity management here in the municipality of Barcelona, and we had, it was very interesting. We were a small group actually, but it was quite diverse in the sense that we had someone from Northern Europe, someone from Eastern Europe, someone from South of Europe. So it was quite interesting to see also the diversity of interpretation and reaction to the topic, which is how to manage the public space in a big city with 1.5 million of people like Barcelona. And we had a wonderful explanation of how things are managed here. As Aida Kian, which is the Director of Citizens' Rights and Diversity in the Municipality of Barcelona, where there are several offices taking care about violation of human rights, migrant association, non-discrimination issues. But we focus on one specific office, which is the Office of Religious Affairs, and because there is a very interesting phenomenon that is a booming increase in worship places newly created in the city. So more or less than 20 years, the number of worship places almost doubled from 375 to 569. So it's on average probably approximately 10 worship places new every year of only the official ones. There is an issue here which creates tensions, of course, because religious activities and worshipping requires public spaces being used for a specific group of people, and with different activities, different traditions, different needs. So this brings tensions between one basic freedom, which is also warranted by human rights, which is the freedom of religious activities and professions. But also this affects diversity of habits, of how you dress, how you live, how you eat, and also when, for example, you take a day off, for example, which is not so for granted. So you usually tend to think to 1 day off a week, but that's not taken for granted if you come from a different religion. So this brings quite a lot of tensions between humans' individual freedom and putting this together in a wider society. So it was very interesting to understand and to learn that, actually we're discussing this from this different European perspective we had in our small group. And one parallel we had was with sport. After all, when you practice a sport at an individual level, you are free to do it more or less in many public spaces. But when you gather into a community of sport, then you need some rules, you need some laws to practice your sport. And this, interestingly, was some of the parallels that came also in the municipality of Barcelona when they were arisen. From a co-creation point of view, it's interesting to learn that there are already some collaboration between different disciplines like anthropology or education or psychology, which have a number of activities of the municipality of Barcelona to improve the way they manage the public space for these different kind of activities from different religious groups. And also a number of stakeholders, relationships which are taken into account, like relationship with the region and communities and bodies, or relationship with the municipality services, or relations with the civil society and citizenship. And some of these relationships are managed in very specific ways, with very specific initiatives, which again brings into the matter some scientific knowledge. So it's interesting to see how some co-creation happens actually. For example, events like the religious nights, so nights where the worshiping places are open to other groups, they can come, see how it works, etc. And then this brings very close the scientific knowledge that is called the contact hypothesis, for example, in social psychology, where a number of studies or researchers show that when you have a positive experience of contact with another group, which is different from you, this brings positive outcomes such as less discrimination, less negative prejudice. So it's interesting to see how specific concrete practical activities from a public administration point of view matches with some scientific knowledge and can in fact shows how you can reach positive outcomes in the public administration, building up on some scientific knowledge. And just to close, maybe is that although some step forwards are achieved, and many of these activities, or some of the activities, are based also on a co-creation, or at least synergy with some scientific knowledge and methods. Up to now, probably has been achieved more a kind of multicultural integration, where the integration comes especially from speaking the language, going to school, getting a job. But apparently from some discussion that has been reported, this does not prevent negative things still to happen. And probably we're reasoning that what you need is not simply integration at this level, which is more intellectual or some materialistic integration, but moving more to a social psychological belonging. So where you are not simply integrated because you've got a school, you speak the language and you've got a job, but you belong to the community, you've got social relationships with people from different groups, and you feel a belonging with the society. So not so much in terms of multiculturalism, but more in interculturalism term. And this has a number of implications, of course, of the way you manage public spaces, the way you manage building, how you decide whether an area to be built in from only one group or more groups, and how they can bring together in the same space.